Money YouTube channel, we've covered quite a number of tax-saving products such as NPS, EPF, PPF, Sukanya Samriddhi, and of course ELSS or tax-saving mutual funds. However, one of the products that never made it to the video lineup were the unit-linked insurance plans or Ulips. So when one of our researchers first proposed to have a video on Ulips, the reaction from the rest of us was quite muted. And why not? After all, we have all heard for many years that Ulips have an atrocious chart structure, their insurance cover is too little, the fund choices are poor, the performance is bad, etc. etc. Anyways, we allowed the research to go ahead, and it's only when we started going deeper into the product did we realize that there was quite a difference between what we originally perceived and the reality surrounding the Ulip. Hi everyone, my name is Shankar Nath, and in this video we shall look to weed out the many prejudices and misinformation associated with Ulips by presenting the right information so that people like you and me can make the right decisions. और हाँ, अगर आप इस वीडियो को हिंदी में समझना प्रेफर करते हैं तो CC बटन दबा के इस वीडियो के हिंदी सबटाइटल्स को ज़रूर ऑन करें. Let's get started. As the name suggests, a ULIP or unit-linked insurance plan is a financial product that comprises of two parts. One, the investment portion, that's where the phrase unit-linked comes from, and two, the insurance portion. So while the ULIP presents itself as an investment cum insurance product, for all practical purposes, one should treat it more as an investment product as it competes with mutual funds for the consumer's money. It's often this insurance portion that mutual fund distributors point out to and say, hey, what's the use of insurance in an investment product? So there's already some propaganda there, but their point is certainly valid. After all, A, the insurance portion is not free, and B, the insurance uses up some part of the premium, which means less than 100% of the money you've paid as premium actually goes into your investment corpus. But if you look closely at the Ulips product construct, one would find that it is actually the insurance part that gives the Ulip all those wonderful tax benefits which are generally not available with the mutual fund industry. So to put it together, a Ulip is a combination of investment, insurance and tax saving that combines together to form a formidable triple benefit story that insurance agents can pitch to prospective policyholders. Now, having said this, Ulips, while they look good on paper, do have some major and minor issues with their product construct. To understand the Ulips' goods and bads, one has to understand the three buckets in which the policyholder's premium gets allocated, and these are 1. Insurance, 2. The charges, and thirdly, the all-important investments. In fact, the rest of this video will be all about detailing these three areas as we try to close in on the actual facts while keeping most of the misinformation and misconceptions away. Let's start with the part of the premium that goes towards life insurance. Earlier in the video, we demonstrated that the insurance premium plays a dual role and need not be treated solely as an expense. After all, you do get some insurance, not a sufficient cover, but you do get something. But more importantly, the insurance provides tax benefits to the entire invested amount, including the money that goes into your investment bucket. If you're wondering how much insurance cover is offered in a ULIP, it's generally 10 times of the premium paid, even though there's a provision of going lower to 7 times of the premium. And if you're wondering why it's 10 times, then that's because the rules say that a sum assured of 10 times of the premium or more will be needed to be eligible for tax benefits. Our research also shows the general impression is that the insurance part of the premium is about 10%. The point is that it's very difficult to generalize this part to 10%, and that's because insurance premiums depend on many factors like the age of the policyholder, smoking habit, the sum insured, and a few more factors. In fact, we went ahead and took a quotation from an insurance company website for a 36-year-old non-smoker male who's looking to invest 1 lakh of rupees every year in a ULIP. The benefit illustration we received gave us a life insurance coverage of 10 lakhs. That's 10 times of the 1 lakh premium. for which the allocated cost from the premium was 1,200 rupees. This 1,200 rupees is what we refer to as the mortality charge in a ULIP, and in this case it turned out to be 1.2% of the premium paid, and definitely not the 10% that we had heard elsewhere. The second part of our research on mortality charges was a bit more fascinating when we observed that as a general principle, the mortality charge kept on reducing every year, and at one point it actually turns to zero. In fact, let's go back to the benefit illustration for our 36-year-old. Notice here that as the fund value keeps increasing, the mortality charge keeps on decreasing. Let's understand why. Now, in the first year, the insurer was expensing 1,200 rupees against a life cover of 10 lakhs. In other words, the mortality rate for the 36-year-old as per the insurer's actuary table was 0.12%. Then by the time we come to the second year, the fund had already put your 1 lakh rupees to work, and let's assume the fund value has increased and is now at 1,10,000 rupees, which means the second year's mortality rate will not be applied on 10 lakhs but on 10 lakhs minus 1.1 lakhs, which comes to 8.9 lakhs. But also remember, the mortality rate will not continue to be 0.12%. And that's because the policyholder is not 36 years anymore, but is now 37 years old. Let's assume the mortality rate for a 37-year-old is 0.13%, which means in this case, it's 0.13% multiplied by 8.9 lakhs, which comes to 1,157 rupees. As you can see here, the mortality charge has definitely come down in the second year. So while your age pushes up the mortality rate, the fund value, which is growing at a much faster pace, pushes down the mortality charge. This is something about Ulips that we didn't have any idea about. So it was actually good to understand this interplay between the fund value and the mortality charges. In fact, we tried some 7 to 8 scenarios, and while there's no specific period around this, but if you're below 40 years of age, then generally we see that your mortality charges will become zero by the 8th or the 9th year in most scenarios. If you want to be 100% sure of this, for your age, simply take an online quote from any insurance company website and do explore the benefit illustration PDF for more details. As a product, Ulips generally have a bad reputation with most people, and the reason for that is their charge structure. So what are these charges? Simply said, a charge is any expense that is billed by a ULIP. For example, we discussed mortality charges in the previous section. Now that's one of the charges. However, mortality is an essential charge and goes into the very fabric of this product. Similarly, ULIPs have fund management charges, which are very similar to the expense ratio in mutual funds. So this too is an essential charge. Outside of mortality and fund management charges, everything else that is expensed by the insurance company comes under the umbrella of charges for the purpose of this video. This includes things like a premium allocation charge, which is a percentage of the premium that you pay. Then there is a policy administration charge, which is a fixed expense charged on a monthly basis. Then there is a fund switching charge, a partial withdrawal charge, a discontinuance charge, a surrender charge, and maybe a couple more. If you're wondering what these charges are for, it's basically the life insurance company eating into the premium that you pay for increasing their own profits and for paying commission to insurance distributors like agents and banks. But having said this, it would be wrong to label Ulips as the big bad wolf of financial products. In fact, even the mutual fund industry until a few years back had expense structures which included entry loads, the non-availability of direct plans, higher cost of trading, etc., all of which were paid for from the investors' money. Unfortunately, in the case of Ulips, and especially in the period between 2004 and 2010, most life insurance companies showed complete apathy and disregard to the policyholders' interest. To put apathy in numbers, most Ulips of that era were expensed at 30, 40, even up to 50% of the first year premium as charges. So 2004 to 2010 was one big party for the life insurance industry. But what everyone forgot was the bigger the party, the greater is the hangover. And it's this hangover that Ulips continue to suffer for over 10 years now, in spite of having gone through a massive transformation, especially when it comes to charges. In fact, let's look at the charge structure of a couple of Ulip plans that were created and sold prior to 2010. Do notice the high premium allocation charges of up to 40% in the first year. This meant 60% or lower of your premium was being allocated towards your investment corpus. In addition to these high premium allocation charges, Ulips of the pre-2010 era also had many smaller charges, which all put together bumped up the Ulip expenses, which meant a low proportion of your paid premium was going towards investments. Now let's compare these Ulips with the modern day Ulips of the same insurance companies. There we go. Okay, so first and foremost, the premium allocation charges are history. On top of it, also notice that a number of the smaller charges are also gone. In fact, some life insurance companies have gotten rid of all charges we had discussed in this section of the video and have retained only the two essential charges, which are the mortality charge and the fund management charge. Net, the modern day Ulips have a much lower charge structure than before, but it's not something that is acknowledged or clarified openly by financial planners and mutual fund distributors, and one can understand why. Similarly, it is probable that insurance agents will not divulge to a prospect that all these charges we discussed earlier, plus the mortality and fund management charges, attract a GST of 18%. 18% might seem small, but in our view, every decimal of a percentage counts, as this is money that's going away from your pocket to someone else's. Having said this, it is our recommendation that anyone who is considering a Ulip should definitely examine their personalized benefit illustration, which would be available with your insurance agent or when you take a quotation from an insurance company website.